We are. Hey, Vav.
That's good.
If he performed Kalitza and then performed Mama and gave a divorce or cohabitated, or if he cohabitated and then performed Mama and gave her divorce or performed Kalitza, there is nothing after Kalitza, whether at the beginning or in the middle or at the end. However, in the case of cohabitation, when it is at the beginning, there is nothing after it. But when it is in the middle or at the end, there is something after it. From the Chumash says, whether it is cohabitation or Kalitza, whether it is at the beginning or in the middle or the end, there is nothing after it. And um, one who cohabitates with his Yevama, whether mistakenly or wantonly, whether coerced or willingly, even if he was mistaken and she was wanton, or if he was wanton and she was mistaken, or he was coerced and she was not, or she was coerced and he was not, whether the union was only partial or complete, he has acquired her. There is no distinction between the forms of cohabitation. Similarly, if one cohabitates with any one of the arayas forbidden in the Torah, or one is disqualified from marriage, for example, a widow to a Kohen Gadol, a divorcee, a kalutza to an ordinary Kohen, a mamzeres, a Nisanite to an Israel, or the daughter of Israel to a mamzer, or a Nisanite, he has disqualified her. There is no distinction between the forms of cohabitation. Okay.
Right. Gimel. Almana le Kohen Gadol. Grush, okay, a widow to a Kohen Gadol, forbidden marriage, but one which is nonetheless effective. Grusha v'chalutza le Kohen Hediot, also a divorcee or a chalutza to a regular Kohen. If um, if they were if they were married only by Erisin, they hadn't lived together yet. Lo yochlu b'truma. They're not allowed to eat truma at the even so this is the punishment for having been married to a man that they're not allowed to be married to. So, for example, let's say this woman herself is a Bas Kohen and she was eating truma in her father's home, um, then she loses her right to eat truma. Rabbi Elazar and Rabbi Shimon machshirin, but Rabbi Elazar and Rabbi Shimon say no. Once she has, if she was only married with Erisin and she'd never lived with a man she was not allowed to be married to. We just said before that if she is engaged to them and then she loses her right to to eat truma immediately.
Mhm.
However, if she is now widowed or divorced, then she goes back to her father's house and we don't penalize her further because she's no longer in that state of Isser of being engaged to a man that she's not allowed to be married to. Is Armala on oh, sorry, I beg your pardon. This is this is talking about in the situation where they are still married to them. Even then, Rabbi Elazar and Rabbi Shimon say that they are allowed to eat the truma until they're living with the man. Nis Armalo and Nis Garshu, after they have been divorced or widowed, um, Mina nisuin pasulos mina erisin kasheros. How if they had actually lived with the man that they were not allowed to live with, then they are not allowed to go back and eat truma. However, if they were just if it was from erisin, they hadn't lived with him yet, then everyone agrees that we no longer penalize them. Okay, all good.
Okay.
Okay. Dalit, Kohen Gadol, lo yisa almana. Okay, what is the rule of the Kohen Gadol? He must not marry a widow, where a regular Kohen is allowed to marry a widow. Bein almana mina erusin, bein almana mina nisuin. And it doesn't matter whether she had lived with the man or not. As soon as a woman has had a ring put on her finger by another man, she is not allowed to marry a Kohen Gadol again. Okay. Lo yisa Velo Isa Isa Bulgaris. And furthermore, says the Tanakama, he may not marry a grown woman. Interesting that she had that according to this, a Kohen Gadol who is marrying somebody must find somebody who is in that little band of being a Nara, that she's not allowed to be a fully mature adult because apparently that detracts from her aspect of being a basula. It says "Hu isha b'bsula yikach." He has to take a virgin, and according to the Tanakama, a Bulgaris has lost some of that aspect of virginity, even though she's never lived with anyone. Okay, Rabbi Elazar, Rabbi Shimon, Machshir, and Babogarius, they say no, that's not a thing. Um, and according to Kahati, that is not the halacha. It is like the Tanakama that the Kohen Gadol, the Chatchila, has to marry a woman who is under 12 and a half years.
Mhm.
Okay. Lo Yisa is Mukas 8, and furthermore, he cannot marry a girl who has had the signs of her virginity damaged by some kind of an accident. They give the example of a mukas eitz that she fell and hit herself with a piece of wood, but any kind of accident that removed the signs of her virginity. Um, Eres es almana. Now, what happens if a regular kohen had already done eresin with an almana, which is allowed to do? Okay, v'nismana liyos kohen gadol, and now they come and say, okay, we're anointing you kohen gadol. Ichnos, not a problem. He's already married to her. It's just that the only thing that he can't do is marry lechatchila, a woman who is a divorcee. But if he is already married to a divorcee, not a divorcee, a widow. If he's already married to a widow and he's now appointed Kohen Gadol, okay, big deal. That's he's already married to her. He's not. We're not going to make him divorce her. Uh, okay. Umase, and it actually happened. Yeshua ben Gamla. There was a Kohen whose name was Yehoshua ben Gamla. Shekidesh is Marta bas Baisos. She was a widow. Uminahu Hamelech Lios Kohen Gadol. And the king. So when you hear Minahu Hamelech, we know what's going on over here. This is in the time of the where the Kahuna got a little bit corrupted. Excuse me.
Ruth.
The Kuna got a little bit corrupted in those days, and people were being they made political appointments. It's not supposed to be the king who appoints the Kohen Gadol. Just a side note over there. But anyway, he nonetheless Chazal were quite happy for him to consummate his marriage with this widow because at the time that because he was already married to her when he was appointed Kohen Gadol. Shomeres Yavam nafla lifnei Kohen Hediot. So what happens if a Yevama happens to a Kohen? Okay, now a Kohen is allowed to do Yibum because it's a widow. Okay, that's fine. A regular Kohen. And before he can do the Yibum, Nisman Elios Kohen Gadol. Now they say, okay, we want you to be the Kohen Gadol. What must he do? Afal Pishe Asaba Mamar. Even though he already did Mamar with this widow and he was getting ready to do Yibum, Hare ze lo yichnos. He may not marry her because on the Doraisa level, she is not his wife. Mamar does not work Doraisa. It works Dorabanan. And since the Isser of a Kohen Gadol to marry an Almana is Minatora, the Mamar isn't enough to permit it. The Mamar is just a Dorabanan. So therefore, he would have to do Chalitza and give her a get. Okay. Kohen Gadol shemes achiv choletz v'olom yavim. And obviously a Kohen Gadol who becomes a Yavam cannot do Yibum because by definition his brother's wife is a widow. Okay. Kohen Hediot lo isa ailonis. Actually, this halacha that it says that a regular Kohen may not marry an ailonis is a woman who is congenitally infertile. Um, and it said there's actually ela im kain yesh lo isha ubanim, unless he has another wife with whom he does have children. And this actually is a halacha not just for a Kohen, it's for any Yisrael. And you shouldn't marry a woman who's congenitally infertile because you have a mitzvah for pru'urvu, and so unless you have already been married and had children and done your pru'urvu, you cannot marry an infertile woman because that circumvents the whole point of getting married is to have children. Okay, Rabbi Yehuda Omer, afal pi sheyesh lo isha banim. Lo Isa Ayelonis. So the reason why we mention it as in the context of the Kohen is because of this psak that we're going to say about from Rabbi Yehuda, because this now only applies to a Kohen. So the previous halacha could apply to anyone, but we're talking about the context of the Kohen because of this statement of Rabbi Yehuda. He says, "Afal pishiyesh lo isha uvanim," even though he already does have a wife and children. Lo Isa Ayelonis, he may not marry the Ayelonis shehi zona ha'amora b'Torah. That is part of the definition of what is a zona that the Kohen is not allowed to marry, which is kind of harsh because the general implication of a zona is a harlot, and that's which is I guess Rabbi Yehuda has some other drasha for why an infertile woman would be considered a zona. But he says Kati, since she is not able to give birth. Um, the only reason why he's taking her for as a wife is just for purposes of his physical pleasure, and therefore he's over on znus as a kohen. Um, וחכמים אומרים אין זונה אלא גיורס ומשחררס ושניבה לה בעילת הזנוס. The Chachamim overrule Rabbi Yehuda on this and they say, no, the definition of a zona that a Kohen is not allowed to marry is specifically a woman who is a convert or a freed slave because non-Jews are presumed to be promiscuous before they've converted. And a Jewish woman who is known to have had relations with somebody that she's not allowed to have relations with.
Mhm. Okay. Mm.
Okay, and that, by the way, just this sometimes does come up as a practical shaila. That doesn't mean that they just had premarital sex. Like if a woman had slept with another Jew before she was married, and she's chozeh b'tshuva and she wants to marry a Kohen, that's fine because she was technically allowed to marry the guy that she slept with. That doesn't make her a zona. It's only if she slept with a non-Jew or with a mamzer or somebody else that she's not allowed to be married to that she becomes pasul l'kohana.
How did this question is how did the Chaman figure out someone's an aloneness? I mean, some people are married 5 or 6 years and then they have
Right.
children.
No, it's actually if she doesn't bring physical signs of maturity by the age of we discussed this somewhere else. I'm just wondering if it's in Yevamos actually. I believe it's when she reaches the age of 18 or 20. I think there's a machlokes about if she's 18 or 20 and she hasn't brought signs of physical maturity, then she's considered an ailonis.
Hmm. So it's not really has doesn't have anything to do with having children. Not
No, she just has to be physically once she's physically mature. I mean, you don't know if she's fertile or not
right.
until you've been married. But if she hasn't brought signs of physical maturity, then that would be considered an ailonis.
Okay, I'm wondering. Okay, all right. We are on
And
Gimel Chet.
interestingly, based on what we just said about the Kohen Gadol, he would not be able to know if she's an ailonis yet. because
Right.
he's obligated to marry her before she's reached 12 and a half and he can't wait until she turns 18 or 20.
All right, Gimel Chet. If any of them had been the subject of a question of betrothal or divorce, the core wives require chalitza but may not be taken in yibum. How is it then that the betrothal was in question? If he threw the betrothal to her and there is a doubt as to whether it was closer to him or closer to her, this is the question of betrothal. How is that divorce was in question? If he wrote a bill of divorce in his own hand but without witnesses, or with witnesses but without a date, or with a date but not with only one witness, this is a questionable divorce. The three brothers were married to three strangers, and one of them died, and then the second performed mama with her and also died. They require kalisa but may not be taken in yibum. As it is stated, and when one of them dies, her husband's brother shall come to her. Only a widow who is attached by one brother's bond is subject to yibum, not a widow who is attached by two brothers' bonds. Reb Shimon says he may perform yibum with whichever one he wishes, but he must then perform kalisa with the other. If the two brothers were married to two sisters and one of them died, then the second one's wife died. She is forbidden to him forever because she was once forbidden to him. Two men who betrothed two women, but when they entered the bridal canopy, they confused one with the other. They are obligated to bring a sin offering because of adultery. If they were brothers because of the prohibition against a brother's wife, if they were sisters because of the prohibition against a wife's sister, if they were menstruants because of the prohibition against a menstruant, we separate them for 3 months in case they are pregnant. But if they were minors incapable of, sorry.
I still can.
That's- Oh, if they were minors and capable of childbirth, we saw them immediately. If they were the daughters of Kohanim, they are disqualified from eating truma. Okay. Okay. Well, Megillah. Okay. Base Aleph. If someone read the Megillah out of sequence, or he has not fulfilled his obligation, if he read it by heart, if he read it in Targum or of any other language, he has not fulfilled his obligation. However, we may read it for those who speak a foreign language in a foreign language. One who speaks a foreign language and heard it in read in Hebrew that was written in Assyrian script has fulfilled his obligation. If one read it discontinuously or while half asleep, he has fulfilled his obligation. If one was writing it, expounding upon it, or correcting it, provided he had an intent, he fulfilled his obligation. If not, he did not fulfill his obligation. If it was written with orpiment vermilion gum, or ferrous sulfate, or on paper or on unfinished parchment, he did not fulfill his obligation unless it is written in Assyrian script on parchment and with ink. A talisman who went to a walled city, or a city dweller who went to a town, if he intends to return to his home, he reads it at the same time in his home, but if not, he reads it with them. From what part of Megillah must one read in order to fulfill his obligation? Reb Meir says all of it. Rabbi Yehuda says from there was a Jewish man. Rabbi Yossi says from after these things. Okay.
Yeah, Shkalim.
Yeah. Okay. Give a base. No, give a Aleph. I don't want to.
Dalet Gimel.
That Daled Gimel, that's right. Sorry. What did they do with the surplus of the remainder of the treasury chamber? With it they would purchase wine, oils, and fine flour, which they would subsequently resell. The profits according to the temple. These are the words of Reb Shmuel. But Makiva says investments may not be made with that which belongs to the temple, nor with funds collected for the poor. What did they do with the remainder of the truma? They made gold sheets to plate the holy of holies. Rabbi Yishmael says the profit of the fruits is used to purchase animals, which are offered upon the altar, and when it is idle, and the remainder of the truma is used for the utensils needed for the temple service. Rabbi Akiva says the remainder of the truma is used to purchase animals, which are offered upon the altar when it is idle, and the remainder of the sachem is used for the utensils needed for the temple service. Kaninya says, Saigon of the Kohen says, the remainder of the Nasachim is used to purchase animals which are offered upon the altar when it is idle, and the remainder of the Truma is used for the utensils needed for the temple service. Neither one nor the other admitted concerning the permissibility of profiting from the fruits. What did they do with the remainder of the incense? They would set aside the truma and ink amount equal to the artisan's wages, and would redeem the incense with the artisan's wages. Then they would give the incense to the artisans as their wages and repurchase it from them with the funds from the new truma. If the new scullum came in time, they purchased the incense with funds from the new truma, if not from the old.
Yeah.
And well,
Shabbos.
oh, get the page. It's coming apart. Should be this. Okay, Dalid base, Dalid Gimel.
Gimel.
Newly plowed land may be rented from a non-Jew in the seventh year, but not from a Jew. And one may encourage non-Jews in the seventh year, but not Jews, and one greets them for the sake of peace. If one thins out olive trees, Beit Shammai says he cuts them to the roots, but Beit Hillel says he may uproot them. But they admit that if he levels, he may only cut them to the roots. What is thinning? One or two leveling. One next to one another. When does this apply? In his, but in his neighbor's, even if he levels, he may uproot. If one splits wood off of an olive tree, he may not cover it with earth, but he may cover it with stones or with straw. If one cuts down a sycamore tree, he may not cover it with earth, but he may cover it with stones or straw. One may not cut a virgin sycamore tree in the seventh year because it is regarded as work. Rabbi Yehuda says it is forbidden in the usual manner unless he raises 10 identifacum or counts down to the roots.
Halem.
Okay, Kaf Daled Vav.
Yeah, Yud.
Good.
Yeah.
There are three mats. A mat designed for sitting on is susceptible to becoming tummy with midrash tumah. A mat of dye is susceptible to becoming tummy with corpse tumah, and the mat of presses is tahor from any form of tumah. There are three water skins and three shepherd's pouches. Those that contain the prescribed amount are susceptible to becoming tummy with midrash tumah. Those that cannot contain the prescribed amount are susceptible to becoming tummy with corpse tumah, and those made of fish skin are tahor from any form of tumah. There are three animal tides. A hide designed for use as a rug, susceptible to becoming a tummy with midrash tumah. A hide used as a wrapping for utensils, susceptible to becoming tummy with corpse tumah. And a hide intended for use as straps or as sandals is tahor from any sort of tumah. Okay.
And Shavuos.
Okay. Aleph Daled. For one in which there was no awareness either in the beginning or at the end, the he-goats of the festival and the he-goats of Rosh Chodesh atone. These are the words of Rabbi Huda. Rabbi Shimon says the he-goats of the festival atone, but not the goats of Rosh Chodesh. And for what do the he-goats of Rosh Chodesh atone? For a person who is tar who ate a sacrifice which was tameh. Rabbi Meir says the atonement for all of the he-goats is alike. For the tumah of the temple is and its holy things. Rabbi Shimon was wont to say the he-goats of Rosh Chodesh atone for a person who ate taho, who is tahor, who ate a sacrifice that is tameh, Those are the festivals atoned for one who had no awareness whether in the beginning or the end. And the one of Yom Kippur atones for one who had no awareness at the beginning but had awareness at the end. They said to him, one maybe won't be sacrificed for another. He replied, they may be sacrificed. They said to him, since the atonement is not alike, how can they be sacrificed one for another? He said to them, all of them come to atone for the tomb or the temple and its holy things. Remember, Shibin Yem Yehuda says in his name that he goes to Rosh Chodesh atone for the person who was tahor, who ate a contaminated sacrifice. And those of the festivals suppress them in that they atone for a person who was tahor, who ate a contaminated sacrifice, and for one who had no awareness either at the beginning or at the end. Those of Yom Kippur surpass them in that they atone for the person who was Saho, who ate a contaminated sacrifice, and one who had no awareness at the beginning or the end, and one who had no awareness at the beginning but had awareness at the end. They said to him, may we one be sacrificed for another? He said to them, yes. They said to him, if so, those of Yom Kippur may be sacrificed on Yom Kodesh, but how can those of Yom Kodesh be sacrificed on Yom Kippur to effect atonement for which does not belong to them? He said to them, they all come to atone for the tomb of the temple and its holy things. For the deliberate tumor of the temple and its holy things, the he-goat which is sacrificed inside, and the Yom Kippur atone, and for the transgressions of the Torah, whether light or grave, willow or intentional, unintentional, of which he was aware and of which he was unaware, positive commandments and negative commandments, those liable to karas and temporal sins, the he-goat which was sent away to Azel atones. Okay,
Hey,
good. Okay,
we're
great.
done.
Have a great day. Enjoy, and
Yeah.
I'll see you tomorrow, Mr. Shem. Thank you. Bye.
Hey, God,